All right, wild thing. It appears we're at the juncture to talk about authentic relationships. Now, I imagine if you've come across this video, you have been honing yourself to the level that you no longer resonate with relationships that are superficial. In other words, relationships that don't meet you at the core level that you've been refining. I think that's really rad. And in today's video, I'm going to share a few perspectives that I imagine will help you as you are forging much more solid, resonant connections, both with others, but also within yourself. Now, I'm Danielle Lynn, and I have conversations with intentional alchemists, reality creators, people like you who are choosing to live in a way that is authentic for them. One of those things is walking this experience of life with those who meet you, who vibe, who resonate with who you are at your core. There are many of us, I imagine, especially who are tuning in to this, who have at one point or another felt very alienated being in this world as we are. I have found oftentimes the very creative, the very prone to expressing their genius type of people do often find themselves in situations where they might appear to be more the fringe, more the less likely to be just got immediately within society. But the thing about that is sometimes, and I'm speaking from experience, we can wear our weirdness not only as a cloak of invisibility, but it can sometimes become a personalized mask, almost like a double-edged sword. I'm going to speak very directly. This is my interpretation of what I'm tuning into right now, so please take what resonates, leave the rest. What I am feeling is when you finally have felt inspired to be yourself, it can seem like certain relationships are just not resonant anymore. And that doesn't make you or the other person or people bad or wrong, because sometimes our mind can try and look for those justifications. It can simply be that that cycle of relationship is complete, that we don't actually wish or choose to continue to invest time and focus into that relationship because there is maybe nothing more for us or them to gain from the connection anymore. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying you should or should not do anything with any of the particular people or relationships you might be thinking of while we're talking about this. What I'm offering is something a little more precise. It's a fine-tuning to bring this conundrum around the relationships back to your inner core. Because when you, let's say, reconcile that, everything else around you is reconciled. When we give ourselves permission to be real clear on what our boundaries are, what our resonant yes is, what we choose to talk about, what we choose to focus on, what uplifts us and amplifies our energy, and what is a suppressor of it. As we give ourselves that clarity, any other excuse you could have to continue with a relationship, you can start to see with much more discernment. You can cut right through it. Because our brains can contain all kinds of reasons that we think justifies placing ourselves in a continued relationship that actually drains us and is ultimately not being of benefit for anyone. Because sometimes we think, okay, well, I still got to show up for this kind of relationship or connection because it's this family member, it's my parent, it's my this, we've been in friends or in a relationship for years and years and years. And those are all story reasons. But length of time, bloodline, none of these things from my experience are resonant reasons to keep saying yes when the rest of you is screaming no. Consider this an invitation for curiosity. without needing to say what must or must not be done in any of these relationships. Consider this a permission for personal sanity when it comes to where you are placing your energy in any relationship. And those relationships can be brought up in the present moment for curious reflection, just to say, does this continue to be a resonant yes in my life situation? And then why or why not? I'll offer us an even more solid foundation for contemplation. It's you, baby. In this case, you are the consistent across all your relationships. Remember that without any shame or blame towards anyone outside of you or towards yourself, you can still ask yourself curiously, what is it that I imagine that I get from continuing this relationship? Why have I chosen this relationship, or why do I continue to choose? Is there a fear story present? Am I afraid something will happen? Or am I doing this because I think it will hurt the other person if I pull away? Or do I imagine it will be too much effort? Because when we're exploring relationships, we're also exploring ourselves. Relating with others is giving us an insight into how we relate within, how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. Sometimes that may not appear so. I've talked to many people who treat others outwardly kind, but maybe they're very hard on themselves inside. But these things, I find, they show up maybe in more subtle ways in our lives and psyche. An additional reminder, no shame or blame required here. It is so fun, in my experience, to have this awareness about our patterning. Maybe we've not really brought it to light before until this moment, but hey, now we've co-created this video. I say co-created because when I turned this on, this particular video, I was like, I wonder what's going to come forward. And boom, here we are, flowing with it. So it appears to me we really were just in the rhythm to talk about this right now. And I feel that it's a powerful place to talk and explore, because our personal relationships can be some of our greatest places of personal transformation. Now, once again, I'll offer to you a few perspectives that may be of assistance. One is that when it comes to relationships, I find that it's essential for me to be very clear on what my personal boundaries are. Now, in this case, personal boundaries are not things I enforce at others. They are my own inner indicators of what is a resonant yes or no for me. Now, to be clear, this is not about giving ultimatums, and it's certainly not about expecting anyone to change. Because you don't place boundaries down in order for others to change. Your boundaries are just the perimeters of what you understand is integral for your environment. See, I'll say it that way again. Your boundaries are simply the mapping of what is integral for your environment. You are like, I am a rainforest creature, so moisture is integral. And it's not that I need you to like or require moisture, but if we're going to hang out a lot together, then moisture is a must-have for me. So if it's a no for you, respect that. But we probably aren't going to spend a lot of time together. This is an example of how a boundary is. Now, when we are clear on what, let's say, our environmental landscape is for navigating, the next phase here is to be aware that if we're attached to another, that's usually where the challenges arise, because then you identify your landscape, right, your emotional, energetic landscape with boundaries, and another person who was in your space doesn't want to rise or shift to it or doesn't choose to, The, let's say, wider perspective on that would be wonderful. They sorted themselves out, you sorted yourself out. Now you have more ability to connect with those that resonate with this ecosystem. But sometimes we get very attached or we get angry. Well, why don't they change? Why won't they change? Or we feel obligations to stick around. In my experience, what happens when we do this in a performative way, when we, let's say, reduce the quality of our personal expectations to meet where someone else is, I find we do no one favors. And one of the reasons I find that this doesn't really, let's say, help anyone is because when you lower the standards of your environmental energy, you're not living to the capacity that your core self truly wants to live at. And another person, no matter how wonderful they are, ultimately won't make up for what you are denying yourself. Now, a few more thoughts on this. If you feel, oh, it's so hard to find people, I don't know where I'm going to find someone else, things like this, please be aware that that is a story, that is a perspective. There are billions of people on this planet. We are now globalized in many ways. I have found that through the power of intention and magnetism, it is more and more easeful than ever to connect with the kinds of relationships that truly spark your heart. Nothing is a requirement because that's just a limitation. Whatever story you tell yourself about how it has to be, that's just a story. I'm going to offer you that perspective. It might be a very convincing story. You may feel you have so much data to back up that story, and I hear that. I also offer to you the understanding that if you could consider there's even a possibility it could be another way, things can happen rather quickly. And I find it's more a matter of our personal magnetism than it is any effort that you might imagine it would take. And one deeper thought here I'll share before we close this particular conversation today. Relationships are one of our key places that can reflect to us where we are, let's say, wanting the most attention within, where we are wanting, maybe even requiring the attention within. Whoever we are in a relationship with is reflecting to us either parts of ourselves that we deeply love, appreciate, and admire, or maybe challenged parts of self. Wherever you are at, may you give yourself the permission to see clearly not only what matters to you, but to not mistake the power of your love for another. Because no matter how beautiful anyone else is, the love we are experiencing, I find, always originates from within each of us. Now, it may come together and be amplified, but I offer you the perspective that the love always originates from within, so you can never truly lose it or be disconnected from it. My friend, it's been a wonderful conversation today. I would love to hear in the comments how it's resonated with you. If you would like to go deeper on talks around this. And if you would like to have more explorations, Self Alchemy Lab is currently open. You can check that out in the description. And I have some interesting opportunities coming up this year. Maybe having a lot of fun, getting really playful with it, like we haven't been playful before. And in all cases, I'm looking forward to all the ways we continue to talk together, and of course, to our next conversation.